Hi guys, welcome back. And this time round I'm bringing you a review which focuses mainly on 1+3 hybrid IEMs. Some of them I have already previously reviewed, and so their presence here is more in an attempt to position the rest or give a general idea of how the ones that I haven't reviewed compare to those that I have reviewed. Some of them are IEMs which have already been around for quite a while, and some of them are IEMs which are very boutique in the sense that they are not coming from a big scale manufacturer, more of a custom DIY kind of thing. Anyway. The focus or the two main IEMs, let's put it that way. Actually, let's make it three IEMs that are going to be the focus of this comparison, or the Symphonyears Tetrad, which is an IEM built by a young man called Isaiah. It's a single dynamic driver plus three BAs in a very beautifully executed shell, and he's been able to pull off for such a young man and such a person with very little experience, let's put it that way, a very mature tuning. And although there are some minor flaws, let's put it that way, so there's room for improvement. The reality is that Tetrad is a very well executed IEM. The other one is the IVIPQ Smurf, which is a 1+3, again from IVIPQ, known better for its cables and anything else. And it's part of this new wave of releases that they've had recently. And the third one is an IEM from PMV, known as the A04, which is again a 1+3, and PMV, for those that might not recall, they were known a couple of years back, or they came to be known a couple of years back because of a planar IEM that they had at the time. It actually, and this is something that not many people know, but that IEM actually preceded ever so slightly the Timeless. The Timeless, when it did come out, it was able to have a more well executed tuning, and then the fact that it was then obviously talked about by Chronicle and by HBB, that then projected the Timeless to a guaranteed success. And the reality is this: even if they hadn't spoken about it, ultimately people who have realized that the Timeless was a fantastic IEM. But anyway, it's not about the Timeless we're talking about. We're talking about this 1+3 that PMV also has released now. So PMV A04, 1+3, 10mm driver, 3 BAs. I'm not sure what they are. I think they're probably not going to be Knowles or anything of the sort. IVIPQ Smurf, again 1+3. Next to that, I have here the XINHS HS6. Next to that, I've got here two IEMs from Kinera. I've got here the Freya 2.0, and I've got there the QRA, Queen of Audio, Aviation. In the front here, I've got the Audiosense AQ4, the Symphonyears Tetrad, Tetrad, the Ziigat Doscinco, and the Penon Dome. In terms of value, the Dome's $349, the Doscinco is $269, the Tetrad is $149 if I'm not mistaken. The Audiosense AQ4, sometimes it is available, sometimes it isn't available. When it is available, it costs anywhere between $145 and $160. The A04 from PMV costs around the $90 bracket. The The Smurf is around $140 more or less. The HS6 from XINHS, it's about the $90 bracket, 80 something, $90. The Freya 2 about 220 something, and the Queen of Audio Aviation about the $195 $200 bracket. So you can see there's a wide variety of prices here, and those prices obviously are reflected in things like accessories, overall build quality, what the internals are made up of. Is it branded Sartnian and Knowles BAs, or aren't they branded? And then there's obviously the component of the brand itself that will also to a certain extent dictate the price. But as you can see, there's a wide variety here. There are, this what I'm about to say actually applies itself to those three basically, which is the following. In this stock format, the one that sounds the best out of these three is the PMV. Without question, it's the one that has the better executed tuning, although its flaw is that it's a little bit energetic past Penon gain, so it peaks quite significantly, and it maintains that energy even though it starts sloping down. It maintains that energy at a very high level compared to the bass. The bass is very well executed, but the energy of the mids, upper mids, and treble is such that it needed something to be done to it. The same thing applies to the Smurf. The Smurf past 1K in its stock format is let me try and be nice, for lack of a better word, is trying to murder your ears. It is very energetic, so if you are a low volume listen, I guess you can get by listening to it, but the excessive amount that it has of energy in those upper frequencies is such that it just makes for a very unbalanced sound, which is there's very little coherency there, and it ultimately just becomes fatiguing. So again, something had to be done there. And the HS6 also had a little bit of excessive energy in the 4, 5, 6, 7K area, and once again something had to be done. The mods done on the Smurf and the HS6, they are not complicated, but they require that you have a measuring rig so that you can make sure that you are doing things in the proper area and in the proper place. So there might be mods that I don't have an issue with explaining them if you want, but I'll do it probably more on a one-to-one private basis than actually putting it out there. While the mod on the PMV, luckily enough, it was just a question of putting a single damper on top of the nozzle, and that's it, and it automatically solved that issue that it had. As for the rest, they are all stock. All of them are going to have very different styles of execution. They're going to be IEMs here which are predominantly vocal focused, so mid-centric, so plenty of detail, more overall balanced with their relation to the bass, but more clinical, more technically capable. There are going to be other IEMs here which are more neutral in their presentation, some neutral and a little bit maybe dark, some neutral and overall less dark, if that's the best way that I can actually explain. But like I said, every single one of them has got their own little flavor. Okay, and just going back quickly to those three there, and the reason why I've included them, although I've modified them, it's because honestly, when I heard the PMV, I noticed that I heard that the PMV had potential. Fair enough, you can argue, for $90 or something, there are other options that you can perhaps go for, which make more sense, and you don't have to modify. True, that's all valid. I mean, there's offerings from KZ, there's offerings from TRN. There's plenty of other, let's say, hybrid options that maybe would even satisfy more. But I saw this as something that was worthwhile trying to see if I could do something to it to make it sound better. And what I did was simple, and it honestly made a world of difference to the H04, to the A04, and definitely made it at least become something that is worthwhile considering. Okay, if you don't want to go for the more usual, let's say, the usual suspects. As for the Smurf and the HS6, the Smurf definitely, something had to be done there because it was just not possible. Like I said, I've got basically all of the newer generation IEMs from IVIPQ. The one that up to now has satisfied me fully is the Shanghai, the 3DD. Phenomenal IEM. Let's just put it that way. Very, very nicely done IEM. And it's actually a little bit interesting to see how most of them at least came from the same source, and how the same source can produce products of such high quality, and then others which are just, I don't know, maybe this IM in its stock format and for a particular market it will be what people like. But trust me, I personally did not enjoy it. That's why I modified it, and I think that again, if you can get it at a discount, because I mean, after all, $130 something is a high value. If you can get it for a discount, if you just like the way that it looks, because this shell is actually quite nice. If you actually like the way that it looks, the faceplate, if you want something different and you are willing to then play around a little bit with modifying it, and like I said, I will explain if that's the case, then I guess yes, why not? Or maybe if you buy it in the second-hand market, then yes, then maybe this could be something that could be let's say an interesting experiment. Very much what I said about this to the IVIPQ applies to the HS6. Although the HS6 wasn't as bad in terms of that energy that it had in the upper frequencies, and although yes, something also had to be done to correct things, to balance things out, it was already from the get-go a more balanced out, a more sensible sounding IM than the VPIQ. And then the rest, like I've mentioned before, have got their nuances. Let's start with the PMV, and then I'll leave this for last. PMV comes with this box here, nice simple box. The cable is a little bit on the not such a good cable. Tips as well, not such interesting tips. That's the reason why I'm using a different cable. The IM itself, the shell, it seems to be a nice resin. Doesn't seem to be plastic, seems to be a resin shell. It's nicely built, it's got a nice fit, very understated faceplate. It looks very smart. Okay, it does look really very smart. And the mod that I do is put a Tanstrom oxygen filter on the nozzle. That's what it needs. And once you do that, then everything just falls into place. No longer do you have the peak of the early Penon gain, which it does have, which peaks at just over 2K in a very prominent manner. That peak comes down, and obviously the rest of the frequencies above that also come down in a level which then match the bass and the mid bass and the lower mids nicely, and then you end up having a tonality or a timbre or a sound which is a little bit more on the warmer side. Now basically devoid of any of the BA timbre which previously it has, and just becomes overall a very easy to listen IM, which in instances is very much reminiscent of the Audiosense AQ4. And those that might remember my review or will go to the trouble of actually looking up for it, you will know that this IM actually is one of those IMs that just very much went under the radar. It is a very nicely tuned IM. you know, it's not perfect. No, it isn't. It would have been nice if maybe there was just a smidge more energy in the early stages of the pin again, just to make vocals not, I wouldn't say not more forward, but just slightly more open. But overall, the reality is this: the A04, the AQ4, sorry, has got a very nice tonality, a very nicely executed bass, and there's a lot of similarities between the modified PMV and the stock A04. A lot of similarities. They sound very, very similar. Ultimately, yes, the Audiosense does come out on top. It is a more expensive IM, but it's not because it's a more expensive IM, but it does come out on top. It is better accessorized. It's got decent tips with it, or it is a better cable. Overall, it is a more sensible IM, but the issue here is finding it. That's it. This, like I said, I've even seen it in Taobao. And Taobao, it ends up costing something like around the $70 bracket. So $70, let's put it this way, $70, and what it needs is just a filter to really make it shine and come out, sounding very interesting. I think it's not a bad deal. Overall, in terms of the sound, like I was saying, with the mod, which is what I'm going to be talking about, the bass is nicely executed, like I mentioned, very nicely executed. It's got a sub bass focus, it's got more than enough impact in the mid bass, reasonably clean, reasonably detailed, nothing that's out of context or not what is expected. And then the BAs, the way that they are now being tamed, they match quite nicely. The feeling now is that you are listening to an IM where all the drivers have been matched almost to perfection, and they come across as just one single driver, while before you noticed that there was a disparity between the energy levels of the DD and the BAs, and everything in the BAs just jumped out to just jumped to your face. So you could notice that disparity. Mids, male and female vocals are fine. I mean, fair enough. There are occasions where some wind instruments, up and up from Jeff Ryan and so on, can come across just a little bit overly energetic, even with the mod. But trust me when I say it has overall a very agreeable sound. I mean, things like Hurry Hurry from Pete Belasco sounded very nice. Piece of Me by Candid Spring, again, very nice. The Tracks of My Tears by Brenda Russell, again, sounded fine. Very easy. It becomes a very easy to listen IM. Treble, again, fine. I prefer the treble as it is now tamed, as opposed to the treble without the filter. The treble without the filter, yes, is a little bit more detailed, but you also get hints of a lot more sibilance, while now the sibilance is basically disappeared, honestly. Yes, there was a little bit more detailed retrieval before, but with the filter, the detailed retrieval that's there is still more than enough and more than capable of overall giving reasonable technicalities. I would say soundstage is a little bit more on the more intimate side, but detailed retrieval, imaging, and resolution are okay. Timbre and tonality as well, I would say fine. I mean, there's no real technical feature that stands out as something that okay. But overall, like I said, I think it's. I'm not saying now go out and buy the PMV, because no, I'm not going to tell you that. That's just doesn't make sense. What I am going to say is that the PMV, if you are able to pick it up for a competitive price, and you are willing to plonk that filter on the nozzle, it will not disappoint. It will give you a nice sound that is very interesting to listen to, very engaging to listen to, and there's very little that you can honestly point as negatives. It's an IM that you could very much use for going to the gym, and will be, in my opinion, way better than using some TWS or something like that. That's the PMV. Like I said, interesting IM, worth considering. As for the IVIPQ Smurf, Like I said, it's got a nice shell, as you can see, very nice shell. You can look inside, see the drivers. This seems to be somehow made in the same factory as InAwaken, which is known for manufacturing the Dawn. So I'm assuming that at least this one is made by InAwaken, although I think all of them are made by InAwaken or by the same factory that makes InAwaken. And that's where I was saying earlier, it's interesting. On the one hand, you have a company like them, which is capable of building or giving us the Dawn, which is a fantastic IM, giving us the Shanghai, the 3DD from IVIPQ, which is again a fantastic IM. And then you have this, which you have to ask yourself, why did they make it like this? Why? I mean, what was the point? In terms of sound, I mean, look, this is something that you get cheap to modify. That's it's end of story. It's not something that you go out and you pay $140 for it, because it's not worth that money. Honestly, it isn't. Even modified, I would say at the very most $90. So basically the same price as the PMV. As it is modified, yes, interesting bass, a little bit more mid bass than the PMV. Yes, a little bit more, let's say, earlier mids. The vocals are slightly more forward, but not a big difference than in the PMV. And then the rest of the frequency range, I would say, is equally well controlled, like on the PMV, maybe a smidge darker with certain songs. Things like, for example, let me see here. Things like, for example, When She Sings to Me by Jeff Cascaro, or Home by Dominic Phil-Aim, they come across a little bit more closed down than in the PMV. And by closed down, I mean a little bit darker. Soundstage, obviously, then by that I mean will be a little bit more close, more intimate. And as for the rest of the details of the technical details, they are fine. I think the standout here in terms of technicalities will ultimately be the timbre and tonality. I think that's the one that it does the best. Right, so there you have that. That's out of the way. As for the HS6, I've reviewed it, but I reviewed it in its stock format. Now I'm reviewing it, or I'm going to be talking about it modified. Like I said, the energy level from 4K up to about 9-10K was significant in its stock format. And by doing the mod that I've done here, which is using some filters on the nozzle, some smaller ones on the actual tubes, and then a larger one overall, I was able to lower that very much, and again reach a level of coherency which is now better than what it was in stock format. It's got very nicely executed bass. I would go as far as saying that the bass on this is probably just a little bit better even than on the PMV. It's also using a 10mm driver, by the way. The thing here that might scare you when you look at the graph, especially when I showed you, is that it's got a very early pin, again peaking at just over 1K. It peaks, so you got very forward sounding vocals. However, because that overall level of mids, upper mids and treble has been maintained on very equal paths to the bass that comes from behind, that forwardness is very much controlled. It doesn't kind of be there in your face shouting, and it still provides that openness to the sound, which, for example, is lacking on the IVIPQ, and it is not lacking on the PMV, but is more relaxed on the PMV. You could question, okay, which is the more colored, which is the more correct sounding? Perhaps the more correct sounding will be the PMV. The more fun and the one that I think more people will like will be this, because it ultimately has that mid type of sound, which is very much QDC style. QDC, the Anoli VX, the likes of the Audio Neon Pro, and a few other IEMs. They all have these this early Penon game, these very forward mids that their reason for success is that they've got the necessary energy coming from behind in terms of the bass to even and balance and balance things out. I lack the word now, the better word that I wanted to find. If they didn't have the bass that they have, and if the XINHS didn't have the bass that it had, those mids would not be as pleasant as they are. Bass, it's a more like I said, the bass it's got a nice weight to it, although it sounds maybe just a smidge slower or thicker than the bass there on the PMV. The bass on the PMV is more sub-bass focused. This has got a lot more mid-bass energy, but the overall sound that you get from here is, while there the bass is kind of, it's present, it's there without being overpowering in the sense of overtaking the rest of the frequencies, and that's why I was saying maybe that's the more correct sounding IM. This one here has got that bass which is bouncy, it gets your feet tapping and very engaging. A bass kind of along the lines of the IVIPQ, but better. So I would say that for again the $90, give or take, if you can pick this up at a sale, or if you can pick this up secondhand. I mean, I've seen this down once at $60. If you can pick it up for $60 and you are willing to do the mod, I will tell you something, you will be very surprised. And also I will tell you another thing, which I think is one of the reasons why this IM is actually quite good sounding, and I noticed that it had potential. That's why I went to the trouble of trying to make it really stand out. This is made by the same manufacturer that makes those two. I'm not going to say names, but if you pay attention, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So I think that is one of the reasons why there's so much hidden potential here. All right, so a worthwhile IEM. And now let's talk then again about the Symphonyears. Symphonyears is, like I said, the result of Isaiah, a young gentleman that is going to college, having put to good work his passion for sound and his passion for building IEMs, and coming without, or sorry, not coming, and without having any or real fears, attempt to make something which is a reflection of what he likes in terms of sound, and just going for it without too much worry, and the result is to say the least very impressive. He has chosen carefully his parts. I mean, these are some no BAs. Granted, there are some older models. The dynamic driver also is a quality dynamic driver, biological diaphragm, I believe that it's using. Very nicely executed resin shell. The level of finish and quality of the actual shell is quite nice. Really nice faceplates. You can have them in a few finishes. And when you consider the fact that this is all handmade, that he's chosen some decent components to put here, and that he is able to offer all of this for $149, you can't really say, oh no, he's making a ton of money. No, this is really the result of having true passion and wanting to convey and share his passion with the rest of us. As I said, with regards to the tuning, the graph that he provides on his website and the graph that I was able to measure are a little bit different. This could be down to different rigs that I'm using, but I've seen another graph of the Tetrad by someone else, and that graph was almost identical to mine. So I would be more inclined to think that maybe our graphs are a more realistic representation of what this sounds like. And what does this sound like? It sounds very neutral, in the sense that you don't have anything or any part of the frequencies that are emphasized. The bass has got just the right amount of weight, just the right amount of presence. It's clean, it's fast, it's got really, really well executed bass. No issues there. It's got then a nice Penon gain. And then we have a peak at roughly, I mean, I can actually show you, I'll show you afterwards the graphs better this is the graph that he provides in his website. That initial Penon peaks at around 2K, as you can see, just over 2K, and then we have this area, this big dip there between 2K and roughly 7.5. Okay, that dip works two ways. In one way, it basically means that you're not going to have anything jumping in your face or being too forward, because even the Penon gain is quite moderate. We're talking about roughly a 7 dB Penon gain, if I'm not mistaken. I'll confirm when I show you the graphs. So nothing is overly forward, nothing is overly energetic, and what you do get is this very kind of old school type of sound. It's got a type of sound. Well, let me make call your attention to the following. This is an IEM that I would recommend that when you fit it, once you've chosen the right tip, that you pay attention to it. So I don't know, open your mouth when you're placing it in your ears. It's got a very nicely executed nozzle angle, as you can see. Very, very nice. So this thing is going to go in your ear canal, and it's going to sit flush with your ear outside. That's the congratulations, Isaiah. I mean, you did your work there. But I would say that when you are placing it in your ear, pay attention to that. Why? Because if you don't, it creates quite a bit of pressure, and that pressure somehow seems to exacerbate this area, like I was mentioning here earlier, of the mids, upper mids and treble, and exacerbate in terms of further bringing it down. So it creates, I don't know if this is the correct way of explaining it, but it kind of creates some sort of pressure, because it seals very nicely in your ears. I can guarantee you that much. You're almost getting a feel of a custom IEM because of that angle that nozzle has, by how deep you can get it to fit. And I've got some pretty big liqueur tips on it, and I was able to still fit it nicely, nice and deep. Trust me. Even with smaller ones, I got an even deeper fit. I just preferred these larger size ones. These larger size ones just work better. That's it. So the fit on the Tetrad is very, very important. If you don't get it to fit properly, you are not going to get, I think, the true magic that the Tetrad can give us. So now going back to what I was talking about, the bass is very nicely done. The mids are very nice in the sense that they are smooth, non-aggressive, non-forward, non-in-your-face, but they will not be those mids that are for those of us that are wanting a highly detailed kind of IEM. It's got mids that very much remind me of the Penon, and they reminded me of the Penon Globe, which is a 1+2 that Penon makes. And it's got those sort of mids, very kind of flat, very neutral, that it becomes extremely important that the balance that is struck between the opposite ends of the frequency range then is very well done. Otherwise, it just closes down the sound. And that's where that attention to the fitment of the IEM initially needs to be paid attention to. If you just take the IEM like I initially did, and you just shove it in your ears, and you don't pay attention to that, you're gonna kind of say to yourself, what happened here to the mids? Everything just seems shut down. Where are the vocals? But if you then do that little trick and make sure that you fit it properly, trust me, if you are a fan of the older style Penon execution of mids, so Globe, Penon Volt, that kind of style of mid-range execution, if you like that style, you will definitely like the Tetrad. And I think by just saying that, I am giving a very fair and a very high level of praise at the same time to the Tetrad, okay? And then coupling that to the fact that this is an IM from a DIYer. I mean, this is no sound engineer, no nothing. This is, and please forgive me, Isaiah. This is a kid, roughly, basically a kid that made an exceptional IEM with an exceptionally mature tuning as his first product. And I mean, he's now got the hex out, which I'm trying to get my hands on that, which is a dual DD plus 4 BAs. And honestly, you cannot fault it. Is this IEM going to be an IEM for everyone? No. First of all, because of that slight little issue of the fitment, straight away there, I think it's something that I cannot full-heartedly say no. Get it if because no, I don't know if it's going to fit you properly or not. So I would recommend try and find somehow means of experimenting, of trying it out or something. That's what I would say. If you are seriously considering this I would say that. On the other hand, if you are not afraid and you are liking the Penon style sound, then I would say, what, go for it. Don't be worried. Don't be afraid. Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like. Don't, because you will be very impressed by the sound. So vocals, smooth, very very relaxed. I would say the male vocals are probably the star of the show here, as opposed to female vocals. There are some female vocals like Sister, like from Rochelle Farrell, that a little bit extra energy in that area there of that frequency range that's been purposely dipped. Would have been nice to give her voice, that extra energy that it has, or Feel So Good by Diane Reeves. Again, the same situation. But at the same time, a song like Home from Dominic Feel Aim, or those two previously mentioned songs, because of that kind of recess that you have in those frequencies, it makes listening to those songs more bearable. And interestingly enough as well, it is an IM that the more power you give it, the better it scales, and the more the sound actually opens up and balances it out. So if maybe at lower volumes you might get the perception that the sound is maybe not as balanced or as coherent as you would ideally would have liked, once you start pushing the volume, everything just falls into place. Again, this is very much a characteristic of a lot of IEMs from Penon, at least the older models from Penon. They were very much like that. Once you start giving them power, it kind of, everything just fell into place nicely, and you got a very one point or one source kind of sound coming to you, without that disparity, or you being able to identify, okay, this is coming from the DD, this is coming from the BAs, or whatever. No. Technically, I would say that's perhaps the area where the Tetrad could have been a little bit better. The soundstage could have been a little bit better. The imaging is decent. The detail retrieval is decent. Timbre and tonality is definitely the best, the better characteristic that it has. It really has a really nice timbre, a very nice tonality, a very agreeable, easy to listen, non-fatiguing type of old school musicality. That's, I think, the best way to describe this. Okay. And that's it, basically. I mean, I guess I've said everything that needs to be said about the Tetrad. Doing now a quick comparison between what I've got here, in the sense of trying to position it. I'm going to leave the XINHS out from, sorry, the IVIPQ and the XINHS out of these comparisons. The IVIPQ, because it's just, it's not an IM that I ultimately would recommend. the IVPQ, the XINHS, I guess I could, but I'm just going to leave it out. I'm going to keep the PMV because, like I said, the PMV is the one that's the easiest to modify if you eventually or if you possibly think that you might be interested in purchasing this. And as it is there, the sound, like I said, is very reminiscent of the sound of the Audiosense. Cheaper, yes, the Audiosense is ultimately better, but very much that's the same style of sound here. Compared to the Doscinco, I mean, there's no comparison. I mean, the Doscinco is just a better, a more polished execution compared to the Penon Dome, the same thing. Compared to the two Kinera offerings, the Queen of Audio and the Freya. The Freya, I think, in terms of as a vocal centric IM, something that is highly focused on the vocals and highly proficient technically, I think it's probably the better one out of all of these IMs. It is really, really that good. And however, you do notice that you are listening to a smaller size DD very quickly. It doesn't take much to pick up on that, especially if it's more EDM songs or songs which have got a more prominent bass line. But as in terms of vocals and technicalities, if that's your thing, that is phenomenal, the Freya. The Queen of Audio is very much the same thing, but just with more relaxed mids, so not as forward. And with the bass, which is slightly better because it's now using an 8mm driver. I believe very similar to the 8mm driver found in the Urd. Don't take my word for being a guarantee, but I believe it's the same driver. So the bass there on the Queen of Audio is better than here. The mids here are more energetic than there. That has got a more organic type of sound. This has got a more clinical type of sound. These two compared to the PMV is more similar to the Queen of Audio, completely different to the Freya. The Freya is, and the PMV will be for two different people. If you like the Aviation, I think it's very likely that you will enjoy the sound of the PMV. Obviously, if you got that, you're not going to sell it to buy this, but so you get an idea. All right. And like I said, the Dome and the Doscinco completely. I mean, it's on a different championship. As for the Tetrad, Tetrad compared to the PMV, I'll be honest, I think most people will probably prefer that because it's got that more engaging type of sound that's easier to like. You don't have to worry about fitting. You just put it in, that's it, and off you go. If you're now a more mature listener and you want something which is more capable, then you will start appreciating the Tetrad and you will understand what is the beauty of this IM. Okay, so two different crowds of people, I think. The same thing applies to the Audiosense. Two very different crowds of people. As for these remaining four, compared to the Doscinco, the Doscinco will again appeal to more people because of the more, let's say, mainstream kind of tuning, if you want to put it that way. However, having said that, there were one or two occasions where I have to say that I was very impressed by how the Tetrad was actually being able to keep up quite well with the Doscinco. Obviously, we do have a price difference of over $100 between one and the other, and is it worth the extra $120? Isn't it worth Look, it's like I just said earlier when I was talking more in detail about the Tetrad. The Tetrad will be an IM that is very much niche orientated. Okay, it will not be an IM for the crowds. So if you are a mature listener, yes, this will be an IM. The Doscinco is an IM for the crowds in the sense that it's got a tuning that will appeal to a lot more people. So it's easier, it's a more likable IM. What I said about the Doscinco very much applies itself here to the Dome. The Dome even more expensive, $349. I mean, if I have to be now, just for example, if I just have to consider these two, I love the Dome. I think the Dome is a very nicely done IEM, Sonian BAs, Knowles BAs, a very good high quality DD driver. Plays phenomenally well. It's got a very nice tuning, typical Penon sound in terms of the bass. big bold bass, but nicely executed. Proof that the driver will matter. If the driver is a capable driver, you can have a gigantic bass energy that it will be properly done. It won't be muddy, and it isn't. But the Doscinco ultimately, because of the price difference, which is almost $100, will probably be the IM that still more people will tend towards, as opposed to the Dome. The Dome, I think, will ultimately again fall a little bit in that category of it's a more niche IM. As for those two compared with the Tetrad, I would again say that the Queen of Audio, the Aviation is probably the one that is more similar here to the overall sound of the Tetrad, while the Freya is a vocal master. Let's put it that way. It is what it is. I mean, that's it's forte. Vocals, details, technicalities, very, very nice. There's no denying it, And again, both of these IMs are very much reflecting the Kinera the house sound, be it Kinera, be it Queen of Audio, be it Celeste, be it they all have a very similar sound, just at different points in terms of price, and that's a pure reflection of the house sound for there. The Doscinco, I think, also reflects very much the Ziigat type of sound. The Dome definitely represents the Penon sound, and I think Isaiah with the Tetrad has also established a kind of house sound. I haven't heard the Hexat, so I cannot say how it compares to this. At least from the graphs and from what I've heard from one or two people, it seems to be more energetic in that post-Pinagain peak, in that valley there. It seems to be a little bit more energetic, which means that it will have more emphasis on the vocals. Instruments will come across more energetic. Guitars, string instruments, wind instruments will come across more energetic, and that's not an issue. As long as the balance is properly done, there's not a problem there. Bass as well, it seems to be, obviously because of the usage of two dynamic drivers, seems to be an IM that is definitely going to be more bass heavy. This is a perfect example of, let's say, a very nicely executed neutral tuning, while the XINHS will probably be now tuning more towards the Doscinco style, that style of more kind of, let's say, mainstream likable tuning for everybody. And that's it, guys. I've talked now here for a long time. In terms of sources, I think you guys saw what I used. I went through all four, the Q style, the RU7, the Yuki, the TP50. These are my four favorite dongles. I've got a few other dongles that I also use, the Colorfly, the A04. They all are very capable as well. It's not like there's huge differences between those four or those others and these four. Sorry, there are differences here in terms of overall kind of type of sound or type of let's say. Signature, in the sense that the implementation of the decks here has been such that, yes, you notice that the ESS is more of a brighter type sounding, while the ones with the CSS, the 43198s, is a more, let's say, warmer type of sound, and the Cayenne again a more warmer type of sound. So they've all got their particular little touch here in the sound. Let's put it, I know it's not correct to say that DAC has got a sound signature, but because it has to do with the way it's been implemented, you can have an ESS DAC that, if it's implemented in such a manner, it can sound warm. That's the reality. And the same thing applies with AKM DAC chips. Depending on how they're implemented, they can sound more warmer, more musical, or more old school, or more clinical, more detailed, more. So it's not the correct thing for me to put things in the manner that I just did, but I think you guys will understand what I'm trying to say. Anyway, guys, I'll show you now the graphs, and we'll wrap it up. All right, you take care.